This time, I'd like to call today's Committee of Council meeting to order. I would like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township website. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is not permitted. This time, I'd like to call today's Committee of Council meeting to order. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is not permitted due to COVID-19 pandemic. I will remind council and staff to turn off their cell phones or put on mute. Is that still true? Okay. All right. I'll read the First Nations land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We'd like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Okay, the adoption of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Can I have a mover? Councillor Micah, seconded by Councillor Olszewski. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Councillor Olszewski and I also have one, and I think we're both on the same issue, 7.1 private roads grants.
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. We have no delegations today. So we will move to the council and committee portion of the agenda. And each chair of the committee will chair their portion of the meeting. I would like to give the gavel to Chair Micah at this point.
Oh, I get to physically hold it. How exciting is that? Okay, so item 7.1, private roads grant 2023.
Councillor Micah.
Sorry. You're leaving the room. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. I wasn't looking. I was looking down, not up.
So we just have the Ontario Clean Water Agency third quarter report. We'll have Ashley review that, I guess, right? So, right on.
Hey everyone, thank you for having us. Me, I guess. Yeah, we're going to make it today. So before you is the third quarter report pertaining to the water system with Niagara Brown. Just a high level overview, compliance targets, health and safety, and operational excellence, and asset protection, all highlighted in page 1. We go through compliance targets, operational excellence. There were no MECP inspections in the last quarter. I believe it was in Q2. However, we did receive yesterday. That was 100%. So that's it. Low ECA limited exceedances of the sewage plant. Work orders completed. Drinking water system issues. There was a hydrant that was repaired on the Crescent. Some skate work that was completed by Capital Controls, their integrator. At the wastewater plant, we had a thermostat and block heater replaced, and there was some odor control units on the SBRs replaced. We did exercise most of the valves on the north side of town this year, everything from 60 to the north. Summary of community complaints. There's a few water complaints, low pressures, and colored water. A goes through all of the criteria that we sample for, all the parameters that we, how many samples were taken, and all the parameters that were sampled of each for both water and then the following page is sewage. To appendix B is the quarterly cost plus report. $5972 is the order number we use for the facility of the water treatment plant. 5979 is the wastewater plant. See, they're both under, so good. Questions pertaining to that?
Councillor Micah, or I guess it's you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Councilor Micah.
Okay. Okay, I don't know how we want to do, I have numerous questions, so I don't know, do we want me to go through all mine from start to finish? Do we want to go?
Yeah, go through all your questions.
Okay, so if we want to go basically to page 16 of our agenda, which is basically page 1 of the report, under wastewater compliance targets. It looks like there's some outstanding regulatory requirements. Can we give us an update as to what that is?
So they are operational targets that Aqua has. That is half of what the compliance limit is. It's an operational target that was exceeded, but there was no actual compliance objectives exceeded.
Okay. Okay. And so basically that little triangle, when you look at it says results are in range, but not yet achieved. So is that something that we're trying to get to that, or are we going to see this so that I don't ask every time I see it? Okay. You forget me, don't you, Ashley? Okay. So if we go to the next page where it shows our flows. So when I look at this and I compare it to averages, if we look at March, is that what we're looking at when we see a water main break? Or, why there'd be such a dramatic increase in flows in the month of March based on monthly averages and 5-year averages. And the same with April, significantly in May again, we're much higher. Unless I'm reading this wrong.
No, you're looking at the maximum daily flow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on cue with seasonal changes, like when everything gets nice out and people are outside more doing stuff, it starts to come up a little bit, and then as summer starts to go, it kind of comes back down.
Okay.
But some of them could be attributed to a main break, but I don't believe there's any in that.
Okay, because so again, if let's just have a quick look at March, when we look at the 5-year average, as to why. You know, I mean, is it because they flooded the arena and it took 14 times more water than it's ever taken? And that's what spiked that level. Or is there something significant going on with water loss? So, and then if you turn the page, it corresponds with wastewater. So those numbers to me don't jive in a sense, because I'm looking at, okay, so if our water spiked, how come our wastewater treatment didn't spike in correspondence with that? So I don't need an answer now, but if we can just address that when the annual report comes in. And then with that report, the way you've got it set up, so we look at if we go to water, we're looking at a legend that shows us max daily flow. We look at monthly average, 5-year average. But when we look at wastewater, we've got average daily, max daily. So if we can have those legends corresponding. So if it's, you know, so you can compare apples to apples. I'm sure that's just a Excel
I'm sure.
Mhm.
thing. Okay, that's it. So that's just for next time. So we can look at that, because that's something when I chaired this committee, I really monitored that, because that the two numbers should correspond, because what's coming out, it'll be a little higher on the water because I think we have a few more water users, but they should generally correspond. And if they don't, then clearly there's a break or something, because that water is not coming back out to be treated.
I will say in May that that was likely when our spring flushing program was taking place, that the entire town was being done.
Okay,
So that's
Okay.
a large one.
but just something to keep an eye on.
I have it.
And so then I don't have notes on every page, so don't panic. Just with the odor complaints, clearly it's one household.
Mhm.
I see that you've done some corrective action. Is that action working? Or are we in a position where clearly you're living next to a wastewater treatment plant and you're going to have some level of understanding, you're going to smell it? Are we doing all we can for that?
Yes, we've mitigated, we've changed the way we pull sludge out of the system and put it in the digester. So that's like the process that's going to be hauled away.
Yep,
And
that's the biggie.
that's the biggie.
So if we stay on top of that, we should help to somewhat consistently mitigate that
As
issue.
opposed to wasting once a week, now we're doing it at a smaller volume than 5 times a week. So it's
Okay,
lessen smell.
right. And how does that impact cost?
Sorry.
Does that impact overall cost if we're doing it?
Oh, the guys do it in their morning walk.
Okay,
It's not
great.
such a switch.
Well done. Thank you.
And this year there has been, south wind has been way more than normal.
Mhm.
So we don't need the weather network. We'll just.
You hear a complaint, the wind's coming from the south.
So the only other question, again, it's basically the same thing going back to the flows in and out, because when you look at page 21, it shows the totals for cubic meters. And again, just keeping an eye on, do those totals match? And is that consistent? So what's being treated and going out as far as water is consistent with what's coming back in and being treated, or sorry, what's being brought in, and you understand what I'm saying.
Mhm.
It's coming in and going out are similar. I think that's it for my questions.
Go ahead.
That's it for me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just more housekeeping, just because we have some new members on the committee. I wonder if, I believe it was provided before, kind of a sheet of acronyms. So I know, like when you were talking, you know, you referenced NECP and PCA, just maybe like a definition sheet of some of the acronyms that we will be using. You know, there's probably a list of about 20 that we use more regularly that then we can provide council members so that it's easier to understand some of the explanations as you're giving them. And then the work order is completed. So as for the new members, there will be a presentation coming in January from CGIS. So CGIS is a mapping system that we use to log the service requests and the work orders. And we're starting to input, if there's any issues with meters or anything like that, it's used by our deputy treasurer as well as Aqua. So I'm expecting when I see the work orders completing, that's something that's already logged into that spreadsheet. So when there's questions asked, like certain things that are happening certain times of the month, I could generate a report and it would show the work orders and the month they're in. So that might help us to isolate some of those spikes as well.
Just wondering how we go about like adding like hydrant flushing like a routine.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, I'd have to talk to.
Yeah, so I think, and that's a good question. That was my next kind of point as we're, budgeting and we're going to be meeting with CGIS to see if we're adding any new components and if there's no cost to adding any more information. So as we're trying to, Aqua's been really good and staff has been very great at calling, the fire department's been adding to when they're flushing, like when they're using a hydrant, so that we can kind of estimate better where some of the water loss is going or some of the activity that isn't being treated, like coming in and going out. That's not the user. So I think if we can maybe add that and send that question to Jeff from CGIS, then maybe that's something when we're doing flushing, even if it's just the length of time and where it was flushed so that we know what's happening there.
As far as it goes there too, actually, like if we're, like I understand what Shelley's saying, she's wondering why there's so much water, right? In the month of May. Okay, it isn't coming back in.